And the Albanese government and its mad climate crusader, Chris, if you don't like my policies, don't vote for me, Bowen. I bet many of us wish now, or many of you wish now that you hadn't, are determined to dramatic cuts to our carbon emissions, and they have made it clear that nothing will stand in their way to cutting carbon emissions. Certainly not small details like, how can we get around, if we can't afford an electric vehicle, or, how do we run our small business if we can't afford our electricity bills, small matters like that. But what nobody seems to be asking is what happens to our airlines. If you cut emissions by 43% by 2030, doesn't that mean we have to cut the number of flights by 43%? Isn't that kind of what logic dictates? Think it through. Airlines rely on vast amounts of aviation fuel, one of the highest sources of carbon emissions. Electric passenger planes simply do not exist, and there is no way in the foreseeable future that an electric plane would be capable of carrying anything like the weight and vast numbers of people that fly on our jumbos and so on. So how do you cut airline emissions? Well, you simply cut the number of flights dramatically. If you've got a better idea, let me know how. Indeed, it would appear that over in Europe, where they are way ahead of us in all this climate craziness, they are already dramatically cutting the number of flights. When I was in London recently, we were one of the million or so holidaymakers who had our flights just simply cancelled in mid-air, as it were. The flights are gone. There was chaos and misery at British airports throughout the entire British summer holidays, with mountains of delayed luggage piled high, people stranded with kids in airports for up to 48 hours. 2 days ago, just 2 days ago, British Airways announced they're going to do it all over again, axing 10,000 flights over the coming winter Christmas holidays. Now, British Airways claims this is due to staffing shortages. But Katie Hopkins, a controversial but popular citizen journalist who you will remember I have interviewed on Outsiders several times in the past, is convinced these airline cuts are part of a more sinister, globalist climate agenda. Namely, she believes national airlines have embarked on a program under the excuse of COVID or staff shortages or whatever it is, to reduce the number of planes in the air to satisfy the net zero agenda. Have a listen.
We heard from British Airways that they are cutting 10,000 flights, and in fact many more are being cut as well. There are references to staffing issues which were used as the excuse in the summer, but this isn't about staffing. This is a decision to cut flights according to target-driven quotas, and this will reflect about 18% of flights being cut, and yet no one's really questioning it. People are very happy to just nod along, blame it on staffing issues and talk about the pandemic. France has banned internal domestic flights if they're less than, I think, 2 hours long. If there's a train that you could take instead, you now have to take that train. You can't jump on a short-haul flight, despite obviously the powerful and the great jumping on their, private jets to go wherever they please. In Norway, there's a proposition for individual flight quotas. They also want to stop duty-free. They want to ban internal domestic flights, just like France. And they want to remove people's ability to fly more than X number of times per year. So another country with the same program in place. And the one country that is being very clear that this is nothing to do with pandemic, nothing to do with staffing, nothing to do with some scheduling or efficiency, is Schiphol in Amsterdam. They are limiting flights to prevent emissions. I mean, the one thing I would say is at least they're being honest about it, but it's really dramatic. They're cutting flights back to 440,000 per year, which is a 20% cut.